All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thanks.
Today's podcast is with Heather Kelly from Heather's Choice.
A lady with two first names.
Yes, and Heather was on the podcast 4 or 5 years ago.
She was like one of the first guests we had. I would say she's in the first 100 episodes.
I think so.
I think she's the first 50.
You know, we were at the time doing a bunch of backpacking, and we were looking for food that we really liked, that we thought was, good for you, because I had switched to eating paleo quite a bit, mostly meat and veggies, and I had felt a major change in my body. Inflammation dropped way down. I used to be pounding the ibuprofen, kind of on the daily.
Do P90X 4 times a day.
Yeah.
Eat some vitamin Advil.
And what set me on that journey was I started going to a CrossFit gym, and these 60-year-olds were crushing me. Like, they would do the workout. I'd beat them like on a workout. I could, of course, do really well. But then the next day, they'd come back and they'd be ready to go, and I'd be so tight or sore or have them locked up muscle or knots and joint pain. And I got to talking to one of the older guys that was just a beast. And he's like, hey, you need to read like the Paleo Solution or the Primal Blueprint, or, you need to look at your diet if you're dealing with all this inflammation. And I did. And that's a whole different podcast, whole different story. But at that point, I started to, I feel like, grow young again, and it took a long time to get off of the inflammatory foods that I've been consuming, the industrialized seed oils.
Foods that you think are healthy.
Yeah, all the heavy omega-6 foods. Getting a fish oil or krill kind of into my diet was a big deal. All these things that I switched over to made a huge difference in, my health, especially, athletic performance.
And then we bumped into
sugar.
Heather.
Got rid of so much sugar, just sugar. And then most of the backpacking foods that were available on the market 5 years ago were garbage, especially your Mountain House, which was pretty much.
What other choices did you have?
Not much. It was kind of Mountain House.
Mountain House.
At least now there are a few other options. But as I sat there and looked at what was available, met Heather at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers annual rendezvous. I think we were in Idaho.
No, it was Montana.
It was Montana.
Missoula, I think. Missoula? I just remember we went and got ice cream.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And some guy brought llamas?
Yeah. And it was a fun trip. We met Heather there and just started a friendship. And since then, she's updated some entrees, meals. Her packaroons are a killer product that we take backpacking all the time.
Have you tried the amaretto?
I have like 4 of them in my bag right now.
Have you tried them yet?
No.
They're amazing.
I like the orange and the vanilla. But the point
it blows those out of the water. Blows them out of the water.
So here's the thing. On today's podcast, it's been 4 or 5 years since I've sat down with Heather. Not necessarily, because we did have a podcast on with Heather with Ryan and Hillary. It's one of our highest downloaded shows, actually, where Heather Kelly came on with Ryan and Hillary Lampers, and we all 4 of us got together and kind of hammered out a show one night. But Heather and I on this episode talk about kind of what we do at home. Like, what do I eat morning, afternoon, evening? What does she kind of consume? What's her diet look like? What are the sort of things we eat on a kind of a day-to-day basis? I don't think we got into like our exercise routines much, but just our diet. Yeah. And then how that translates into the mountains and what we bring into the mountains that kind of coincides with what we eat at home. So we get into that on the podcast. We talk about some of her foods. For those that don't know, the philosophy behind Heather is, she wants to produce foods that fuel you in the backcountry, that give you everything that you need in the backcountry, but do it with top foods. So you're talking, definitely staying away from inflammatory ingredients, in foods, and sticking with really high quality foods. And with that, she's pulling in wild caught salmon, not farm salmon, because so much of what we consume today, especially in the United States, you go to a kind of a regular Joe Blow grocery store and you buy meat, you buy veggies, you buy different things. They've been either sprayed down with pesticides or treated with estrogen enhancing hormones
chickens
and
don't
products.
Get that big.
Yeah, chicken, like a lot of your meat it's a lot of that stuff is grown in an environment, whether it's meat or vegetables, it's grown in an environment where it is infused with unhealthy items from the get-go, things that are damaging to your health. Mm-hmm. And damaging to your gut and your endocrine system, your hormone system. Like it jacks with all of that stuff. So Heather really sources all of her ingredients from places around the world where you're talking top notch, where the food itself is grown in a way that's as natural as possible. So it's a very ambitious thing. And, the downside with Heather's products, if there is one, is cost. It can cost a little more than your cheap Mountain House. Mm-hmm. But as Ryan Lampers and I have, this year I made a lot of meals on my own that I supplemented with Heather's meals. And I like that mix because Heather has some great recipes and some delicious meals that are right in vein with how I try to live my life.
She wants your recipes, by the way. She asked no less than 24 times for some recipes.
and Ryan and I are going to provide her with a few that we like. Mm-hmm. You take what she does, and you take a little bit about what you do, and I feel like I'm fueling myself properly in the backcountry. And then I do find myself on the road a lot and traveling. So making my own jerky, my own like protein balls or hemp cookies or some of my own fruit leathers and so on that are made naturally and with stuff that I source. It allows me to hit the road, and I have a couple Heather's Choice meals, and I don't eat out or eat garbage, and I'm well fueled. So I've also used them a lot over the last year to fuel myself when I'm on the road, just traveling, having food at the ready constantly.
Whenever I travel, I always end up like getting constipated because I'm eating crappy food, eating fast food, sitting all the time, and then I just feel like crap for the first day of my destination wherever I'm going. We talk about eating out, by the way, and I truly get pissed off about eating out because I feel like, man, like last night I had an elk steak, not an elk, mule deer steak, from this last hunt I was on. It's been aging in the garage. I just cut off a slice of the backstrap, cooked that. I had some bacon we get here from this natural bacon store, nothing added to it. Wrapped it around the edges of the backstrap, threw a little bit of gourmet cheese in there. Had some salad with some pecans that candied dinner. With some honey and butter, and threw it on with some olive oil and balsamic and some fresh tomatoes. And it's like, I eat like a king, right? Mm-hmm. If I want to go to a restaurant and eat that similar meal, it's like a $45 plate, $50, and it's not better than what I make at home. And usually it's way worse. And so I get pissed off about how much money I spent on a meal that I don't like, and then if I do something cheaper, it's like $10 still, and it's garbage usually. So I just get irritated eating out. I remember we were heading to Prince of Wales one time, the time we were on the ferry, and we had Chad with us. Mm-hmm. And Chad said, anyone who orders chicken from a restaurant is a fool. He's like, because anyone can make chicken pretty dang good. He's like, if you're spending your money on chicken, you're a fool.
Well, that's on a ferry ride where they have fresh caught
fish,
halibut and fish like right out of the ocean the day before. And so you could have all this fresh, delicious seafood, and people that sit down and actually order chicken off the menu. It's like, what are you doing?
Seafood is so readily available that there wasn't even a seafood section at the grocery stores.
Oh, when we were in Prince of Wales Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't even buy fish there.
No, it was really frustrating. We were having a hard time buying any seafood on the island.
There just wasn't any because everyone
just had some.
Yeah. That was interesting. We did get some clams though that we bought for, I don't know, like $5 from a guy, a big giant bag.
Yeah.
And we ate those.
Which Heather's from Alaska, and it's where most of her food's sourced from.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we're going to roll into this podcast. I hope you like it. You can save money. Heather's working with us now, which we're stoked about. Been wanting to do this for a long time. You get 10% off.
15% off.
You get 15% off at Heather's Choice if you use the code GRITTY.
Yep.
It's a good discount.
That's
15% off. So get yourself some meals and get yourself some packaroons.
Get some amaretto packaroons.
So that's awesome. And then you can always use the code GRITTY at Mountain Ops and get free shipping. Also get some discounts on some more products. Also use the code GRITTY at Sissy Sticks and get yourself some sweet poles, trekking poles. Those are a legit deal. If you want to get somebody something for Christmas, that's a good one. The trekking poles, I think right now, in fact, until December 20th, there's some kind of deal going on.
Yeah, they're super cheap. They're like $100 flat right now or something like that with free shipping.
Yeah. So go to bigsissygear.com and check it out, or sissysticks.com. And again, they're a carbon fiber upper and an aluminum lower. They're built tough. We've put them through the paces. The balance of lightweight and strength is killer. The similar product at REI is like more than $200. And this supports a hunting company. So check that out. Before we get into the show, we did have someone write in. Well, not just one, but a bunch of people wrote in. That last podcast I did with Anthony Spencer, where we talked about tree stand hunting for mule deer, is a good show. I enjoyed that. Hunt was awesome. I can't wait to try that again next year. But on that show, we got a lot of questions about the tree stand setup, because we never got into that when we talked about gear. We never really did that. And a lot of guys were asking. I kind of took that for granted. But just to fill you in, I have used some climbing tree stands, but especially when I'm out west. I mean, if you're in a hardwoods area in Ohio, there's quite a few trees I felt like you could just latch your climbing stand onto. There's no real limbs to deal with, and you zip up a tree and you're right there in it in the morning. But most of the hunts I've done throughout my life, like in Oregon, especially when we were hunting blacktails, the tree you want to get into is often awkward. It's got tons of limbs. It's not really built for a climbing stand. And I feel like a climbing stand is too limiting. And I'm pretty athletic, so I actually like to, I have no problem hanging steps and climbing into a hang-on stand. So my favorite setup is my Lone Wolf climbing sticks. I use 3 or 4, usually 4 climbing sticks. I also really like the...
Hold on. Climbing stick?
Yes, it's a climbing stick.
It's not a ladder?
It's called a climbing stick.
Okay.
And so basically it's like a 3-foot section with 3 steps on it. And you buckle that to the tree, cinch it down, add the next stick and the next stick, and you strap each stick to the tree.
Okay.
So I like Lone Wolf steps, and I like Muddy. Muddy Tree Stands has a great set of steps. I like those as well. In fact, I might like the Muddies more, but they're never in stock. They're always sold out. I actually have used them a bunch, but don't own any. But I've got like 3 sets of Lone Wolf steps. The Lone Wolf steps actually kind of are designed to fit right on my Lone Wolf hang-on stand. And I think my Lone Wolf hang-on stand is like 13 pounds or something. Maybe I'm way off. Go check for yourselves. It's light. It's one of the lightest tree stands available. So I use the Lone Wolf stand and the Lone Wolf steps. That's my setup. And I usually bring a rope in with me that is it's a safety line. And that rope, has a prusik knot tied to it. And I'll wear my harness as I hang the stand. And the rope just loops around the tree, and I'm just always strapped into the tree. So as I hang the steps, as I move up the tree, I just move the rope up at the same time. If it's like 10 or 15 feet off the ground, the first 10 or 15 feet, I usually don't bother with the rope.
Mm-hmm.
You
can take a hit.
I can generally jump from there and I'm okay.
Yeah.
Once I get up to where I feel like, it can be risky, I put the rope up for safety and then I just hang the stand up there. And then when I come back each day, or it depends if I hunt and hang every day or if I hang it in the same spot. I tend to like to sit the same spot once I figure out what they're doing day after day. But I've hunted in areas on Mount Hood where we just hike in and we just find a tree in the dark on a trail that we know is kind of busy. We look at fresh snow and we set up there. And every day you take down and hike your gear out. Every day you hike in and hang your stand up, especially because it's public land and there are a million people that go in and someone might beat you there the next day. And if they're parked at the logging road ahead of you and they've hiked in a foot of snow ahead of you, they just beat you there. And so you don't want to have your stand hanging in there. So you pack it out every day. You pack it in every day.
Ugh, that's rough.
Actually, I'm pretty fast. I can hang the stand in 10 or 15 minutes pretty quietly as well. And I can get it down pretty quickly as well. It's not too bad once you get the hang of it, I guess. I've seen other people like my cousin Ben. He takes about 2 hours to hang a stand. I don't know why, but Anthony and I are quick. Ben also throughout the day continues to makeshift and cut branches and move things and fidget around. That's why he doesn't really kill anything from the tree stand. Folks, it takes patience. It takes patience and a will to sit in a tree stand. It's a different kind of skill set. Anyway, so that's my setup. I like that setup. And the lone wolf stand is fairly quiet as well. It's actually, because this year I have a stand I really like. It's actually a fairly inexpensive bone collector.
Oh, really?
Stand like their hawk, whatever. And it's not the best tree stand in the world, but it's comfy. It's got this big giant seat on it and this big platform. But there's things about the lone wolf that I like that are where the seat doesn't squeak and your rubber boots don't squeak on the platform because it's a coated kind of metal. And so that's kind of my thing. And it's really tough to find a stand that's that lightweight as the lone wolf. Durable, easy to hang, easy to carry, so that's my thing. But I have watched the hunting public. They have been using a tree saddle, different tree saddles. I'm not sure which brand they're promoting, but they have one that they really are into. And I used to use a tree saddle. I used a tree saddle for years. I've killed a bunch of deer out of a tree saddle. So has Anthony. And that's great because all you do is carry your steps on a pack. And it's quiet. You hang your steps. And the whole time you're hanging, you have your saddle around you, which makes it safer because you got like a lineman's belt around the tree. And boop, 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 you just hang your steps. You get your steps up. And then you just put your rope around the top. And you're just hanging there. And you can just get a 360-degree angle on your shot, depending on where the deer are coming from. It's quick and dirty and safe. So it's a great setup. What I found, though, with a tree saddle, I need to get a new one because I left my old one in the woods and it got stolen.
Good old public land.
Taken or whatever you want to say. But the thing I liked about the other location, or the thing I like about a tree saddle is it's quick and efficient. But sitting in a tree saddle for 9 or 10 hours is brutal. 8 hours, it's just anything beyond 3 hours, 4 hours, it starts to get real uncomfortable, especially if it's cold outside. If it's summer, August, September, even early October, it's like you're warm, you can deal with it. It kind of cuts off circulation now and then after a while, and you're always shifting and you can't hold perfectly still. So I prefer a tree stand for all day sits by far and for cold weather. But I do see a lot of value in the tree saddle, and I'll probably I might use one of those on a future elk hunt. Like this year in September, I brought a tree stand in, which actually helped me kill my bull when I was solo hunting back there. I spotted the bull from the stand and then got down and stalked him. And it took me a while to zero in on where to put it, where to be. But I think, a saddle would be much better to pack into for a pack-in type hunt. Less bulk, less weight. So anyway, I hope that clears up those questions. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Leave us a comment on YouTube. We always appreciate that. Subscribe, like, all of it, and stay gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and on today's podcast, my guest is Heather Kelly from Heather's Choice. Heather, you and I, we go way back.
Way back.
Way back to when I started and you started, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Heather's Choice is a backcountry meal, backcountry food company. You produce some glorious things we call packaroons, which are just these little like coconut, like almond flour, these snacks that are just perfect for the backcountry. Ryan Lampers and I smash those on every trip. And then we have entrees, like the classic salmon chowder and the buckwheat breakfast. We smash those. Ryan I've been eating a lot of the African peanut stew.
Yay.
And but anyway, that's a little background for Heather. Heather also was a college athlete and still an athlete and is very, very dialed with your fitness and your diet and your health and all that kind of stuff.
I'm really glad I gave you that impression.
I would say in comparison to the average, let's say.
It's all relative.
Yeah. Well, you're not eating McDonald's. When was the last time you had McDonald's?
Oh, my mom would never let me have McDonald's. Are you kidding me? No way.
So it's been a while.
Yes. It's been a real long time, if ever.
If ever. Yeah. So different than your average American, I'd say. But on today's podcast, I want to talk a little bit. Let's get into nutrition and optimal health, optimal living, and so on, because your meals are an extension of your belief in what you believe in terms of diet and health when you're at home.
Mm-hmm.
They're just an extension of that. And so we've had this discussion 4 years ago, I think it was now.
Oh my gosh.
I think it was 4 years ago.
We're getting so old.
And a lot has, not much has changed actually in how I view health and wellness and diet. And a lot of people ask all the time, every week, like, what do you eat and how do you eat and how are you in shape? So I want to get into that. What do you think?
Yep, let's do it. I want to know what you do because it seems like there's always new trends. There's always new, hot, exciting things. And I feel like the people who are healthy for a lifetime just kind of settle in to this sort of a groove. And yeah, things tweak a little bit over time. But as you said, over the last 4 years, you've probably like eaten and exercised and slept relatively the same.
Yes. Other than, being overly stressed, that's been hard because as Gritty has gone through ebbs and flows, it's a different type of stress than maybe my old career. Like I bring mentally, my job kind of carries with it more unknowns, being an entrepreneur and sort of just, so other than that, and dealing with that, my health markers and stuff have kind of all been the same, and how I eat. Well, before I get into that, let's hear Heather. Like, how does Heather eat each day? Let's just real quick go through like a typical morning, afternoon, evening for Heather.
Yeah, sure. So after I get my 12 hours of beauty sleep, because that's really what I strive for in my day to day, I will have lemon water first thing in the morning. It's kind of like refreshing to have that. And then I drink black coffee. I've tried all the like bulletproof and collagen and all that stuff. And nothing's as good as just black coffee for me. And then after 2 cups of that. I will have pretty typically 2 eggs, 2 slices of bacon, and then Brad and I eat a lot of those gluten-free English muffins. Have you had these from Ezekiel?
No.
Mm-mm. Oh my gosh.
Good?
If you like gluten-free stuff like I do, they're dangerous. And then I, in my spare time, love making jam. I'm like a jam geek.
I did not know that.
Yep. I love to make preserves. Like that's my thing outside of dehydrating food. And so we usually have like blueberry or rhubarb jam.
Okay.
Lunch, ideally we're packing leftovers. So it's typically going to be like burgers and sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts. I could eat that meal every day, probably for the rest of my life. Like as soon as we arrived here in Salt Lake, I went to the store and got chicken thighs and Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes, those Japanese ones, and threw it all in the oven and baked it. And that's kind of my perfect meal. And then dinner time, a lot of times Brad and I will do burgers, dark chocolate chili. I will make that at home all the time. I love making spaghetti with spaghetti squash or gluten-free noodles. So a lot of the stuff that you see on the Heather's Choice menu is like
that's what you're eating at home.
Repeat for my dinner menu. Or we make a lot of curries, like a chicken curry with a bunch of veggies and just regular old white rice. And then I will always make room for probably like almond butter and chocolate just as like treats, in the afternoon. And realistically, I'll probably have a glass of red wine at the end of the night or 2, depending on the day, depending on the stress level from the business, as you know.
All right.
Oh, the only other.
So you're not really paying attention though to how much protein, how many carbs, how much fat you're getting. You're done with that. You're just kind of just know this is what fuels you.
I would say so. I feel like for me, there was a long period of time where I focused on that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was valuable when I had more clear physical goals.
Yeah.
If it's erg times or if it's pull-ups or whatever it is, tracking your food, I think is super valuable. For me right now, where the things that I'm tracking are business metrics and stuff like that, it's not critical what I have or haven't eaten. It's way more critical to actually eat consistently and eat well and eat high quality, and to make sure that I'm not skipping meals. That's something that my partner Brad and I get on him about, of like, you can't be too busy to skip lunch. Like, take the time, sit down, eat a lunch. You will feel so much better. Your attitude will be better. So yeah, I don't think that right now it's important for me. And if anything, I'm just really grateful where my relationship with food has kind of grown to, because I know in the past it wasn't always that easy. Right now it just feels super freaking easy to eat when I'm hungry and eat a reasonable amount of food and be done with it. And I know not everybody is as fortunate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think what you eat now is going to also help determine what you're going to eat 2 hours from now and 2 hours after that. I really think that it's what you put in your mouth has a cascading effect in terms of, what your appetite is 2 hours, 3 hours from now. And so when you eat junk, let's say, at noon, I think 2 hours later, you're going to want more junk. It sort of sparks a response in the body to crave it more. So the more you can fuel your body with good stuff, the easier it is to continue doing that. For me, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything in terms of indulgences. Like I eat I'll walk you through what I eat.
Yeah, you got to give me a day in the life too.
So typically, I don't like to eat in the morning. I don't know why. But when I wake up in the morning, I like to just fast. It doesn't, for some reason, probably for the last 5 years, eating in the morning, I don't want to, so I just listen to myself. So right around noon, usually I'll get up around 7 or so. Around noon, I'm starting to feel a little bit of hunger. So I might drink some water in the morning or some black tea in the morning. I like a little caffeine, so I'll have some black tea. If I do eat in the morning,
99% of the time, it's a perfect peanut butter bar.
Oh my gosh, me too. Those are so freaking good.
It's usually a perfect peanut butter bar with some black tea.
Oh my gosh, those people have me like wrapped around their finger.
I don't know why, but it's like, and I like the peanut butter. I like the almond okay, but it's really the peanut butter. And so probably 3 out of 7 days, if I do feel a little bit of hunger in the morning, mostly because I did a heavy workout or something the night before, then I'll wake up in the morning ravenous. I actually will have appetite. I still stick to like a peanut butter bar and some black tea, and that's it. Yep. Until around 12 to 1, somewhere in that window, I'll eat. When I eat, typically I just chop up a bunch of kale, broccoli, green onions, mushrooms, just all these veggies. I'll throw them in a pan with some butter. I'll steam them a little bit, saute them a little bit. I'll throw, when it's done, I'll sprinkle some salt on that, and I'll throw on some like vinegar.
Ooh.
Down the road here, there's a couple of vinegar shops, like vinegar and olive oil infused. And so we have like 4 or 5 different olive oils infused with different flavors, blackberries or grapefruit or garlic. And then the same with the vinegars, they're all infused as well. And you can mix and match some of these olive oils and these balsamic vinegars together to create different flavors.
Sweet.
And I find like it's a really healthy option for flavoring vegetables or even meats. I like olive oil a lot, and I like vinaigrette. You can mix it together, and so that's typically what I do. I sprinkle a little bit of that on there, and then I have 2 or 3 eggs, and I might have them scrambled. I don't care how I eat them. I'll eat them. Suzanne will hard boil them or whatever. Like I'll just 3 eggs, one way or another, and avocado. I'll usually have an avocado, a whole avocado. So that's kind of like lunch, you know. And then if I worked out and I've been lifting heavy, I'll have like an elk steak. So my food is kind of plain. Like it's all in its own category. like
this is why you've been giving me a hard time about the menu for 4 years now. Like, can you just bring it down a tad?
Yeah, like it's got salt on it and a little olive oil. Okay. There's no spices. But it's like you got your greens, you got some protein, and you got some fats with your eggs, your olive oil, you got avocado, you got elk steak. There's nothing like this isn't like meatloaf or curry. Nothing's mixed together. There's nothing cooked.
Do you have a divider plate?
No, I don't, but it's just like I like the whole foods. Like for some reason I gravitate toward that, and it's just a pile of whole foods more or less. And then I smash that and get back to work. And then in the evening, I'll typically have either I'll have some kind of burger or steak from something I've killed, you know, and don't care how I eat it. I usually put cheese with it, big slab of like sharp cheddar or something.
Ooh, have you had the Kerrygold cheddar?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. I love cheese and olives. So I'll throw on, we have lots of different olives in the house and cheese, and I'll have the meat. And I usually, like Monday or Tuesday, I'll throw in like 7 sweet potatoes, wrap them in tinfoil, throw them in the Traeger grill. I'll just cook them all for an hour, and I'll pull them out, pull the skins off, and dump them into a bowl. And so I have this giant pile of sweet potatoes that are just ready to go. And I'll grab a fist-sized sweet potato, and it's just ready. And then I'll throw some butter and salt on that. Sometimes I'll put honey on it, and I'll dump cream on it. I don't even whip it. It just don't even bother. Just dump it right on.
I can't be bothered with whipping the potato.
Yeah. And then I'll eat that and try to throw in some more veggies of whatever, squash or more greens. And that's kind of, but again, they're kind of whole food groups. And then if Suzanne cooks, it's usually a lot of times it's in a Instapot or a pressure cooker of some kind, and she'll throw in and make some kind of stew type stuff with potatoes and carrots, and so we'll eat that. And white rice, we do a lot of white rice with some kind of stir fry or something that she's made with vegetables and again some meat. And it's kind of that same cycle every day.
but it's mostly meat and vegetables. And then one thing I love, if I've worked out really hard, cottage cheese.
Oh, yeah.
I eat a lot of cottage cheese, and I take grapefruit. We get especially this time of year, grapefruit's really good. And so I'll take all the grapefruit out, whole grapefruit, put it into a bowl. I'll put like 2 tablespoons of sugar on it, and I'll dump like a cup of cottage cheese in there, and I'll mix it all together, and I'll smash that along with the whole meal I've had too.
Nice.
So then I try to finish eating by like 9:30, and then don't eat anything else until noon the next day. And that's kind of what I do, when I'm really on a schedule and I'm at home. But it really is dependent on how heavy my workouts are, and they vary depending on how I feel throughout the week.
What time of day do you work out usually?
I like to do it fasted, so if I can, I'll try to hit the gym around 12 because I want to eat around 1. But if I'm going to the gym with my daughters. I take them at 3 and I work their butts off from 3 to 4 or something. So, or 3:30 to 4:30. So in that case, I'm just hitting the gym because I want to be with them.
Yep.
And so I'll eat a lighter meal in the afternoon, and then I'll just kind of make up all those calories from when I get done with the gym until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I tend to eat a lot of my food after I feel like I've got a lot of work accomplished for the day.
Right.
Because for me, and I don't know, I feel like I've been this way my whole life, but it's probably gotten worse, I think, as I've gotten older. As I talked to Hillary Lampers about it too, she's like, yeah, your stomach acids aren't as strong as they used to be. There's a lot of things, especially when I eat an elk steak. It's like a big old slab of red meat seems to take some digestion. And so for me, when I eat, I just feel sluggish, and it doesn't seem to matter.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter what I eat. I usually kind of feel a little bit like my body's rerouting all the energy to that process of digestion.
Which is, that's natural. I feel like somebody asked me that recently with competition nutrition, like how before a race they tend to get an upset stomach, and so it feels like nothing really settles. And obviously when you're in that fight or flight response, your body's like, whoa, get all the blood out to your arms and legs, and like we're not worried about digesting food right now, and it's go time.
Yeah.
And so it's normal that when you eat food, ideally you do take that time to rest and digest. That's why we should have siestas like other parts of the world, but we don't have the liberty to do that.
That's why I like to eat. Most of my eating happens, I'll eat at 12 or 1. It's mostly vegetables, with a little bit of the avocado and the eggs. I kind of lean toward that unless I've eaten. Then I'll throw in a steak too if I've really depleted my protein and I crave it. For the most part, I stick pretty light. I smash most of my calories after like 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And so from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, that's where I'm mostly eating the whole time. Like I'm eating constantly during that window. But I'm done. I'm hanging out with the kids. I'm walking around the house. I'm doing other things, and I don't have to be super sharp, and I'm not trying to edit or produce something or interview someone. So I find like I love being hungry. I love the feeling of being hungry a little bit. Like I like the fasted feeling because I don't eat anything after, let's say 10 o'clock, and here it is 9 o'clock the next day, 10 o'clock the next day, 11. I'm like on my game. As soon as I eat, I feel like an old man. Like I feel like things just start slipping a little bit.
He's I've got food on the brain.
Yeah, so it's like so for me, I feel like fasting, intermittent fasting, or a time restricted feed window does really, really help me. And when you go to bed at night at 10, after you've eaten, I sleep quite well. By morning though, I feel like I'm in a state where the body's empty of food. I haven't triggered any insulin response because I haven't eaten anything. I don't eat any sugars or any carbs really to trigger that. And so I feel like, as soon as I start to eat though, it's like, then it perpetuates wanting to eat more. Mm-hmm. But otherwise I can just not eat. I can go all day and not eat and feel really relatively solid.
Yep, that makes sense. I feel like it's still so different between men and women, and this is why Dr. Hillary is so helpful to us in our community. Because for me, I find that if I do have some carbs before I go to the gym, because I like to train at like 9 or 10, like that will be the best workout that I'll have. Whereas to go, say at like 3 o'clock after having lunch at noon isn't as good. But if that breakfast meal with an easily digestible protein like eggs and then maybe half of an English muffin, like, man, that workout's going to be super strong. Whereas if I get up and go right away, sure, I will have moved. It will have been fasted. I'll have a good workout. But for me, it won't be as strong as if I've had a meal maybe an hour to 2 hours beforehand. So I feel like that individuality is so important. And especially for, I don't know how many female listeners you have, but I'm like, wait, this might work for Brian, but if you are of the female type, like, do not take this for gospel.
Oh, and Suzanne and I have completely different things that work for us. Like she doesn't quite eat like I do. She doesn't eat at the same time frame I do. You know, we're very different. And I think people are different. Over the years, what I think really works for people, my buddy Anthony is much healthier than he's been in a long time. We were just talking about this on this mule deer hunt we were on. He fasts. He doesn't really eat till after 1 o'clock every day. You know, same kind of thing that I've done. But he started this whole thing doing an elimination diet, got rid of like everything. And then he just added things back in to see what worked and what didn't work. And he was like, yeah, I'm like, so you can't have, I remember what it was. I was like, so you can't eat this anymore? And he's like, oh no, I probably can. I'm like, so, and he goes, but I feel so good not having it in. Why do I reintroduce it?
Totally.
I mean, I might find out it works fine and I could have it, but he's like, but I just feel really good. So, and I don't miss it that much. And so he's been able to do this whole thing where he's taken things out of his diet, really cleaned up these autoimmune reactions he was having, this sluggishness, this, gas, bloating, things like that, all gone. And then just feel really young and strong again. Like, you hear food is medicine. It really is. And so he's now knows what he can and can't eat, and he sticks to that, and he's a champ,
Do you ever have those experiences where you're like, maybe now I can have this, and you go back to eating some of those foods and you remind yourself like, oh, this is why I don't eat this stuff?
I'm 45, so I don't really do that anymore. But there was a time when you're like wishful thinking. You're like,
maybe I can still get away with it.
What I do find is I absolutely thrive on certain foods. And if I stick to those foods, I'm good. But if I crush myself in a workout or even on the mountain, like with lampers, doing some crazy night hike with 100-pound packs all night till the next day.
You guys are a party.
My diet will completely change based on that exertion, that level of output. So if I go and crush some CrossFit water, it's like if you were to run a 50-mile race. It's you're going to fuel yourself a little different now than you would if you were just working at your desk and then doing a light workout and coming home. It's different. So, for example, I'll consume things that I would never consume when I come off, let's say, some crazy night hike and I roll into town. I'm going to smash like 3 Mountain Dews and I'm going to...
You're not a saint.
No, I will absolutely, and I'll eat a tub of like Haagen-Dazs. And it's like, but it doesn't even impact me at all. Like I eat
You're
that.
so insulin sensitive.
I'm so sensitive. It's like just burns in this hot fire. And not only that, I can feel the cortisol levels spiking because of the stress of what I've just done. And I can feel my breathing be irregular. I can feel like my heart rate's a little off. Like I can feel the stress. I walk in, I smash 2 Mountain Dews and I eat a Haagen-Dazs and it's like, oh, stress gone. Like I just am like, whoa. And I think people underestimate how much carbohydrates in the proper time window post exercise, how much those reduce stress and actually, at least for me, it reduces my stress levels way faster. I think it gets me in balance way quicker. And the sooner I can get the high stress stuff to switch over to relaxing, the faster my recovery is going to be, and the better I'm going to feel. So smashing carbohydrates in those time frames, I think, are critical, and they really help me excel when I'm on the mountain. So when I'm up there hiking and I'm crushing it, one of the things I bring that Ryan kind of looks down his nose at me for is I'll eat those.
He would.
Oh, he would. He does. I eat some of those shot blocks, those like Cliff Bar shot blocks, and they're just like gelatin sugar. We'll do something that's like climb a mountain super fast. My legs are shaking a little bit when we get to the top. We're chasing maybe a deer or an elk over on the other side. I'll get up there and I'm just like wobbling a little bit. Smashing that sugar is in that moment and having it be easily digested and consumed, like it just goes right into the system. All of a sudden, within moments, I remember we were hunting tar and we got up there and we were trying to find Ryan's tar, and we were on the slope where if I slid off, I was going to drop like 500 feet and die. And
all I wanted was some candy.
yeah, and I was like trying to block out the whole thing, walking along. I don't have an ice axe. I do have some tiny little micro spikes. And I remember getting to the spot where I slipped a little, and you just realize how dangerous the situation is. And the adrenaline spiked a little bit, and my legs, everything I lost it. It's like rock climbing. I don't know if you've ever done that.
The Elvis leg.
And it's just like done. Like the adrenaline spikes, and then when it comes down, you can barely stand up because there's just it's so intense. And so at that moment, I needed sugar. That was it. You sit down, I eat sugar, boom, I'm back to that. That shakiness gone, and again, it's the timing of it and the type that you're consuming. But I find like consuming carbohydrates in the right time windows is very effective for me.
Totally. Especially if you're training day in and day out. And I think that's why I'm having a bit of a hard time with like the big push towards keto and like super low carb stuff. Because you see it so frequently in your day to day. If you go push really hard for an hour, goodness knows how many carbs you're burning, how many calories you're burning, all that.
Right.
And after that workout, giving yourself some complex carbohydrates from sweet potatoes or grapefruit or whatever, you replenish that glycogen so quickly, and your body does do this like, thank you. Like I'm not having to kind of like scavenge around to see what kind of proteins I can break down and turn those into carbohydrates to like get my glycogen back.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm all for dense, good quality carbohydrates. And I was listening to a podcast this morning with a woman named Dr. Stacy Sims, and she does formulations for noon hydration. And she's just talking all about women and carbohydrates. And that's where I'm kind of like hoping to send people to her TED Talk, because the TED Talk name is that women are not just small men, and like our physiology is so different. So even though we can have some similarities, like, post-workout carbohydrates are great, women might also need breakfast or pre-workout carbs or this, that, and the other. And so I feel like, we're kind of saying the same thing, that it's all individual, but man, I am pro carbohydrates.
Well, it's funny because we were hunting with Metabolic Mike from High Intensity Health over on this hunt with Ryan on this last mule deer hunt. And he was very keto focused and uses a time restricted feeding window. He did supplement with some figs and as a carb that he was consuming in that window of high intensity activity to kind of fuel those glycogen stores that were being depleted from the hikes. But he felt good. He was able to keep up and do everything that we did and feel strong on his more keto driven diet. And I think there's a lot of benefits, health benefits that come from the way he is living, the way he's, the diet he's on.
Yep.
I also really like carbs in a way that it's like, do I want to live the next 40 years not having them? Not really. Like, I like them.
Yeah. Have you seen that sports nutrition? I feel like this is a really old study, but they took a bunch of runners and basically ran them to exhaustion and then gave them pieces of, I think, Big Red gum. Mm-hmm. And then the ones who had the gum were able to override their central governor basically and run another couple hundred yards, where the ones who didn't have the sugar weren't able to.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? It's
a
pretty interesting little study. And I think that it's valuable for those times when you feel like you've kind of hit your limit and you're at that point of exhaustion.
I agree. Like, I have found that I've tried these different ways of I've tried more keto, heavy keto on the mountain, and I've not performed as well or felt as good as I do with the mix I have today. And Ryan and I eat a lot the same when we're out there. We get carbohydrates. We do a lot of those fruit leathers.
I know, you guys are so cute with your fruit leathers. Every time I see that on Instagram, I'm like, hey, I want to make fruit leathers.
We get our sweet potato and we mix that with, Suzanne picks all of our pears and apples in the local orchard. We live in Fruit Heights, Utah, which is just an old orchard town. And so there's lots of trees up here. So we get great apples and they're so good, and pears. And then she makes our children slave away and make applesauce and pear sauce.
I want to come hang out.
So there's
I want to do
jars and jars and jars of canned pear and apple. So we'll take that. I'll mix it 1 apple serving with 1 sweet potato. Mix them together, just half and half. Throw a little cinnamon or nutmeg or something with it, if I so choose, and then just put on a dehydrator. And
so good, so cute.
And then I'll eat. Basically, when I'm on the mountain, I have a full sweet potato and an apple, basically. But it's more delicious this way. I'm not sure why. And then I also dehydrate a full apple and a full banana. So I'll eat a whole banana and an apple. The one thing about that is when you dehydrate a banana and you're making it hyper palatable, it's easy to eat 7 bananas in one little, and it's still eating 7 bananas. Yeah. It's still the same. You would never do that at home.
Your potassium levels are just through the roof.
It's the bowels, man. It's like the whole constipation, diarrhea, like it's all of it. So I have to be very careful when I dehydrate fruit. I keep track of this is 1 apple's worth. This is one banana worth. Otherwise,
you're like
I will
counting them
eat
out?
7. Yes, I do. It's like 12 slices makes 1 banana, and it's like an inch. By the time you dehydrate it, it's an inch of food.
It's like a Tootsie Roll of banana.
Yes, but if I eat more than that, it will destroy me. So I have to be very careful. And Ryan will attest. I bought some pad thai from REI on my way out of town. It was like Meals to Go or something there. And it's got like 5 ingredients. And I was looking at it, I was like, okay, it's pretty clean. But one of those ingredients was Thai chilies. Which is just a little Thai chili.
He's
it's
so
just
sensitive.
a little I ate that I ate that pad thai. You can ask Ryan. I told him when I took the first bite, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. And he and Sly, they had to survive my pad thai blowback. I was so gassy. Same with Mike. He was there too. That what they did was we bartered. I'm like, give me your Heather's Choice and I'll give you the pad. They traded me meals so that they wouldn't have to smell me have these reactions.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
And so, yeah, I'm a little sensitive when it comes to spices.
You need to come to our kitchen when we make smoked salmon chowder, because the amount of white pepper that we put into the salmon chowder, even over 100 or 150 servings, it's like 10 grams. It's not much, but I guarantee whoever is making it is going to sneeze, because you're like measuring out this white pepper and it just gets everywhere. Like you just turn into a sneezing fit, whether you want to or not.
Well, I remember the first 4 years ago when I got your meals. I'm like, what the hell? Like, does this gal just love like burning the hell out of everything?
Yep.
Everything was so spicy. It was good, but I was like, I'm struggling with the spice. And I actually like the taste of spice. Like, that's not the issue. My face starts to sweat and all that. That's fine. But it's when it gets
the consequences.
It's the consequences. Like when it gets lower in the system, I pay. And I don't know, back to health, like elimination diets. Like people figure out what works for them and what doesn't. And, I was talking to Hillary about this years ago, and she was talking about gut health. And she's like, well, were you born C-section? Were you born natural? Were you born, what did your mother eat? Were you breastfed? Were you not breastfed? Like all of these things contribute to your gut biome. What's in your stomach that's unique to you? Did you have severe earaches and issues when you were a kid, sore throats? Did you take a lot of antibiotics for something? Did you have cancer? Did you have chemo? Like all these things completely impact your gut biome. And your gut biome is yours one way or another. And there's not much you can do about it except fuel it with the foods that make it healthier.
Yep.
And for me, I don't know, for some reason, I didn't get the stuff that can handle spices. I was just with Anthony, and they were cooking, and they made tacos, and they sprinkled the taco seasoning you buy at the store in there. And I'm like, guys, you don't get it. Like, that taco seasoning is going to wreck me. And they're like, what is it? And they read it, and it's like cumin and like a few other things. I'm like, that's it. I don't know. This combination. And sure enough, the whole next day, I'm bloated and gassy. And it's, so I just know what works and what doesn't.
Yep. And that's valuable. Oh, I heard something recently that you're going to love. I think that this kind of ties into sort of the whole lifestyle that a lot of us lead in being in the backcountry all the time.
Uh-huh.
And so they were talking about probiotics and how you can go to the store and buy probiotics and you can get a strain of this or a strain of that or a blend or whatever.
Yeah.
But the argument was you're actually better off to like have a dog or like go stick your hands in the dirt and like go introduce sort of natural airborne bacterias into your system rather than going and taking a capsule, because you're going to get just a wider range of stuff and you're going to introduce good, healthy bacteria into your system. But in doing that through going outdoors and playing outside and working with animals. And I just really appreciated that as a reminder that, man, the pills and the supplements that we take really are no stand-in for what we get exposed to when we're actually outside.
This is, as I've researched that, I've gone down the road of probiotics a lot just to try to learn more about gut health.
Try to be able to digest chilies.
And what I found is, first of all, like, it takes billions and billions of
billions
in order for it to even have an impact, right? To even make a dent in your digestion. And from what I researched, I found like if you take a probiotic, it's great for that day, but it doesn't take root in your system. Like all those billions of bacteria, they pretty much go in, they'll work for a day or two, they'll die. And it's over. They say it doesn't actually repopulate your gut well at all. Like it really doesn't build up your gut bacteria at all. For some reason, I don't remember the science behind it, but so you think, oh, I'm introducing all these new bacterias, but they're really temporary. They're just there as long as you take
They're getting their butts kicked by the bacteria that already lives in your gut.
And so they were saying that if you took it for like 2 years, and they did these studies, they found that when people stopped taking it for 2 months, they couldn't locate that bacteria in their system. Like it never seeds it. And the only thing that actually really seeds your gut biome and really changes it is a fecal transplant.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Where they take the poop from someone else's gut and puts it into your gut. And there's like 3 or 4 ways that can be done. But any way you do it, it doesn't sound pleasant. Okay.
Are you going to tell us all the ways?
Yeah, let's just bypass that. But once they put it in there, what they found is you don't know what the reaction is going to be. So you can take someone with the perfect gut that seems to just be so healthy. They can take the fecal matter from that person, transplant it into your gut, and then whatever you have going on in there, it can have this reaction, and you can go from being, just bloated all the time and now all of a sudden you're obese. So
Jeez Louise.
you can
or depressed.
Or depressed. You can just have all these different, because like they say, the gut's your second brain. So it can go and do all these weird things. So it's sort of it's effective, meaning it's the only way that you actually really do repopulate your gut biome. In not the only way, but a major way that it's actually achieved. But because your gut biome's so unique and that one's coming in, you don't really know what it's going to, ultimately how it's going to impact you. You can't just stick it in and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be like this guy.
Right. Or have you heard about that with like organ transfers? Like if somebody dies and they donate their organs and then somebody gets their heart and they wake up and they're like, I could really go for a Dr. Pepper. And the person who donated that organ like loved Dr. Pepper. Like you inherit these weird things. Like that stuff is crazy.
Yeah.
I would love to learn more about that.
So I think when it comes down to, health and wellness, and diet, I do think your gut health is paramount. And so that's why I eat so many green veggies, just kale and broccoli and asparagus and green onions and just everything that's green. And I try to eat a lot of vegetable matter. And then, I'll do stuff that I think is like sweet potatoes, yams, like all that stuff I do really well with. And then I do really well on white rice. So that's kind of my carbohydrates of choice.
Yep.
But
which are all safe starches, which is why we incorporate them into Heather's Choice meals.
Well, that's what I was going to say is fueling myself on the mountain. We have our fruit leathers, yum, yum. And then I have whole food, like fruits and bananas and so forth. I love buckwheat, but I'm surprised how many people don't like buckwheat.
Me too.
Like
it's like 50-50, super polarizing.
So have you thought about making like an oatmeal?
I've thought, yes. We've thought about it a lot. We've talked about it a lot. I actually want to take Ryan's mountain mush recipe and turn that into a commercial product. That would be so easy. I'm having a hard time figuring out how we would differentiate our oatmeal from what's already out there.
Yeah.
So maybe you and Ryan can help me brainstorm that.
That'd be fun.
Wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Because we eat mountain mush on every hunt.
Yeah. Mix
that up. I'll have Heather's Choice, the strawberry and the banana and the blueberry. Packaroons. My wife makes those little protein balls. Mm-hmm. Like she has a recipe that she likes and that I like. And then I did the Ryan's hemp heart cookies things. And those were great, but I'll tell you, the protein in those made me gassy. Like adding protein powder to them. It was okay. Like a couple of days, fine. But I got on this hunt where I was eating 6 or 7 of those cookies a day. That was a problem. So, but the other thing I bring is perfect peanut butter bars.
Oh my gosh, those things.
I bring like 2 a day on my backcountry trips, and then an entree. So I've been making my own, and then I have some Heather's Choice supplemented, mixed in there too.
And so the amount of food that you're eating on those trips sounds like it's probably at least 3 times what you're eating day to day here.
Yeah, I would say, it's 3,000 calories a day.
So yeah, maybe only like double or something. But yeah, I think that's a good point too, of like 3,000 calories a day through good quality foods will get you really far.
And we lose our appetite. I lose my appetite as the days progress sometimes, especially if we really overexert. So, which we always do. So I end up on like a 10 or 12 day hunt. Sometimes I will do something that's so physically demanding that the next day I can't really be eating solid food. Mm-hmm. Like it's a straight up, so I'll bring Pedialyte and liquid IV. I get those little packets from Costco, those electrolyte packets, and I'll have some Ignite sometimes, Mountain Ops Ignite, mixed in with some of that, and I'll eat the Cliff, gel things, and I'll stick to the fruit leather and a Packaroon, and it's pretty much an all carbohydrate, all super digestible, easy to digest diet. It's like a bland diet that I'll be on for a day or two because I just don't have the appetite or the energy to digest, salmon chowder. It's just not there.
Totally.
And so I'm just trying to get by on this kind of liquid diet with some very digestible foods because I'm just spent, and I know how my digestion works and how I'm working. And so, and we might have a lot of hiking still to do. And it's no different, I think, than running a marathon or some of these intense races where, these racers, these competitors, they're not, at mile 30 or 50, they're not eating pizza anymore. They've moved on to goo, and
Pringles.
Yes, because that's something they can hold down and they can leverage, and they're just trying to get through it, and so I bring a lot of those supplements just in case, toward the end, I need a more sugar intensive diet, a more carbohydrate intensive diet for a day or two. And it seems like that happens at every trip. Like I just don't have the desire to eat.
Sure.
I need sleep.
Did Hillary ever recommend bringing any digestive enzymes or anything on these backcountry trips?
I bring biotics, like Mountain Ops version of probiotics. And what I find is, so I'll bring that and I bring their Renew. And the Renew is like psyllium husks and then a whole bunch of like different herbs and Chinese herbs and stuff.
Nice.
And they just kind of help with digestion. And the biotics, they've, I don't know how many, 20 billion or something per capsule or something like that. But we played around with those. I used to use intestinal flora, or I forget. There's a few different brands that I would use, but for my kids, we took all the different brands. There was like 6 or 7 of them, and then we dumped the capsules into a little glass of milk to see what the reaction would be with the bacteria being dumped in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that, and the Mountain Up stuff it will turn that milk into cottage cheese overnight. Cheese, like it'll just boom. And some of the other ones would take 2 or 3 days to do that. But so you can do a little test to see if it's even active or live bacteria. But it's a solid bacteria strain. It's enough to make a big difference. And when I take biotics, Mountain Ops biotics, I feel like it's not seeding my existing gut bacteria, but it is aiding in the digestion of what I'm having that day.
Yep.
So at dinner time, usually I'll eat my entree, I'll have a biotics, and I'll have a Renew. And then the next morning I'll have a happy poop, like right off the bat.
And everybody's going to have a good day.
And I'm right on track. Like I stay very regular. I don't get constipated. I don't get diarrhea. I don't get these things. Like I feel like that really works. So I do bring that, and I eat that. I have that every day, whether I'm on the mountain or I'm here.
Oh, nice.
For some reason, for years I took Metamucil in my early 30s because I was wrecked, too much Taco Bell.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like your diet has changed over the years and you found a new system that works for you.
I didn't know, I would say I was in my, about 35 is when I started to kind of think about whole foods more and stuff like that. And then right around that age is when I started messing around with CrossFit as well. And I started to learn about paleo and keto and all that. And then that stuff changed my life overnight.
That's what we need to ask Ryan when we see him is if he ever had a point in his life where like the flip got switched or the switch got flipped. Mm-hmm. It sounds like for most of the men that I've talked to around like 30 to 35, something happens, something changes, and you don't get away with all the stuff you used to get away with.
No, and I feel like now, I don't even, like we were talking about this offline, I don't even think about these things generally. Like they're just automatics. What I eat each day, how much I eat. 2 years ago when I was asking Ryan, well, what do you bring in the backcountry and exactly how much do you and what's your breakfast and what's your snacks? And I'm like, well, how many calories is that? And what's your, he, no idea. He's just been doing it so long. He just knows this is what works. And now I'm kind of in the same boat when it comes to backcountry food. But I've been like that around just food at my home for 6 or 7 years, at least. So I think it matters a lot. Like how you eat is, it does really impact everything. And it's not that hard though. Like I was saying, like I feel really good about everything I eat. Like, I don't feel like I'm like bacon and avocado. I eat that all the time.
Yep.
Eggs, veggies, like all of this stuff is delicious. I don't feel like I'm sacrificing.
Yeah. Gosh. And I feel like, I think I said this to you earlier too, that I feel like I am doing a disservice to our customer base by not spending more time helping people to learn a little bit more about good food just in their day-to-day life, so that when they do go into the backcountry, our products aren't so jarring. Like if you eat a standard American diet and then you buy our food, you're going to be like, what the hell is this?
Well, it doesn't taste like candy. Like if you eat your mac and cheese, I don't know, Backpacker's Pantry or Mountain House, it's not going to taste like a Heather's Choice meal. But it's sort of like eating a Red Robin hamburger versus, a tar burger from New Zealand that I've made.
A home cooked meal.
Yeah. They're not in the same league. And I suppose if you're used to the one, then the other can taste funny.
Yep. Do you notice, I assume that you don't go out to eat very often, but if you do go out to eat, do you notice any additional inflammation pretty quickly?
Absolutely. If I eat out often, I'm going to have some joint pain. So it's funny. I can hunt 10 days in a row, grueling exercise, hiking all day, every day. And I'm forced to eat what I brought with me, right? Healthy foods, clean foods, anti-inflammatory type foods. Then, like I said, I can come back from that mountain hunt, smash a couple of Mountain Dews and a Haagen-Dazs.
Our vices are so funny.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I'll be like, feeling much better. But the next day I will wake up and my hands will be swollen and my knees and things will be swollen that were not swollen the whole 10 days or 12 days I was out there. And so absolutely, it does cause some inflammation, but I also feel like it's pretty minimal and the hunt is over and I got some days to recover and it's worth it to smash, something like just to have that comeback. When we came out on that mule deer hunt, we got, me and Ryan, we got milkshakes, burgers, fries, ketchup. I
might pay
enough
to see Ryan drink a milkshake with a little straw.
Oh, dude, we smashed garbage, and it was the most delicious meal ever. And then, and then the next day we're back on the clean thing. I think that's healthy. I think it does jack with your metabolism in a good way, like jumpstart things. I don't know. All I know is I crave it. I kind of listen to my body. It's so rewarding too. And then you're back on track. But inflammation from eating out, absolutely.
And yeah, the reason I bring that up is just because, again, I feel like this isn't talked about enough of those simple things, like deciding to go out to eat, knowing 99% of restaurants are cooking with canola oil, soybean oil, peanut oil, grapeseed oil, whatever it is, like these
industrialized seed oils.
Yeah, these really pro-inflammatory fats. And I don't feel like that's talked about often enough when people on their day-to-day maybe feel like garbage and they don't know why. Yep. And I feel like those really simple food choices that for you and I maybe feel pretty second nature.
Yeah.
But for the average person who's, buying a box of food, or they're eating out at a restaurant, or they're even getting meals delivered, if it has those pro-inflammatory ingredients in there, you're screwed from the onset, no matter how good your intentions are. And so I feel like that's something that you do that maybe people aren't really privy to, just because they haven't been exposed to what's an anti-inflammatory versus a pro-inflammatory fat.
Ryan does want to eat well, but he's also the world's biggest cheapskate. So for Ryan,
it's the perfect conversation for him.
It's more like he wants to save money than he does want to eat healthy. So for him, it's like he doesn't want to eat out because it costs money.
Yeah.
But for me, you could ask my wife, I get so angry about eating out. I get so mad because I'm paying money for some food that I make way better myself at home. And so I'm so disappointed every time we go anywhere. It's not rewarding. Like we go to the local restaurant here, Twigs, and you order some meal, and I'm like, I make a better steak and better salad than this. Like I make a better everything than this whole thing on my own grill with my own stuff. And so I don't like to go out to eat. Now I'll do it as a social activity. And even then I'm trying to pick the cleanest things on the menu that are just not processed or not fried. And, the only place I really like to go, around here is Sushi.
Ooh.
I just like sushi because I don't make it at home so well. And it's hard to mess up rice and salmon. That's raw,
Totally.
So I tend to eat out. When we go to eat, we eat sushi, and it drives Suzanne crazy because she wants something else. And I'm like,
you're like, no,
I
will make you something
else.
else.
Just not eat out then. And so, and then the other thing I really like about, I don't know, once every 2 weeks or something or so, I like pizza.
Ooh.
I like those little personal pizzas that Blaze Pizza or Mod Pizza. It's garbage, but I like to have pizza. I like bread and cheese and all the crap on it, So every now and then again, it's timing, depending on what I did for workout. The other place I'll go sometimes is Cafe Rio, which is just like your kind of Chipotle type, or Chipotle, type your Mexican kind of just a burrito with rice and beans and meat in it.
Yep.
But for the most part, I can't remember. It's been at least 3 weeks since I've eaten out anywhere.
I think that's something to strive for in and of itself. Not only from a budget standpoint, but also from a health standpoint. Yeah,
Chris Spieler was on my podcast a while back, and he's like, Brian, if you have to cook everything that you eat, like yourself, you have to cook your foods before you eat it. If you're someone who's finding yourself having to cook everything before you eat it, you're 99% ahead of the rest of the population in your health.
Yeah, and if you want treats, like you want pizza or you want French fries or you want ice cream, but you got to make it yourself, you're like, meh, I don't want it that bad.
Yeah.
It just takes too much effort.
What are the foods you like the most, the combination? What are some foods that are your indulgences that most people would look at and go, that's just food. But for you, you're you appreciate it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I definitely know what you mean. If I put some heavy whipping cream in my coffee, it's a really spectacular day. I'm really living on the edge. I think that's one, definitely heavy cream. I used to do a lot of it. And my gosh, just the post-nasal drip or kind of the phlegminess from heavy cream. After a while, I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. I have a problem. I can't do this all the time.
Yeah.
I really, really love just a good ribeye steak. Oh my gosh. And, wild game is great, but a grass-fed beef ribeye, oh boy. That's pretty high up there.
It is pretty good. It is pretty good.
I've yet to have like a ribeye. We got actually we got rib steaks off of the bison that we use for our meals. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's gamey. Like bison, it's not the same as just a straight up ribeye. So yeah, cream ribeye, even like dark chocolate. I don't consider that a bad food whatsoever. I incorporate that into the everyday. But I think people get kind of fired up about chocolate and candy, and it's like, gosh, it really comes down to the quality and the quantity of what you're eating. Depends on what it is.
For me, if I want to smash garbage, I just want a whole bunch of calories, and it's a treat kind of thing. Mm-hmm. For me, whipping cream, it falls into that category. It can be cream with. It doesn't matter what it's with. It can be cream with berries. Usually it's berries, blackberries, blueberries, or raspberries or something. And I'll throw a little sugar in there with it, and I'll just scarf like a cup. Like, I don't know. It's like 2,000 calories worth of cream. And like
that's ambitious.
It's a lot of cream.
Oh my God.
It's stupid. Yeah. So,
the critical point is
what's crazy is like 1 tablespoon is some stupid number of calories when you're talking cream.
Something.
Yeah. So it doesn't take much to destroy that. Those peanut butter bars, again, perfect bars, and even the chocolate ones, the peanut butter chocolate. Like, there's a few different ones I like. Bacon and avocado. Like, I try to find some relatively clean bacon without nitrates and nitrites and stuff in it, but I'll have bacon and avocado. Lots of bacon and avocado.
Ooh, do you do grass-fed butter?
No, just
regular old butter.
Mm-hmm. We should probably fix that, but we're not very good at that.
Oh man, yeah, the Kerrygold butter, we go through a metric ton of it.
I eat a lot of butter. I cook with butter a lot. Mm-hmm. And then, those are kind of the big things I hit. Like, I'd say cream, bacon, avocado. I do not have Haagen-Dazs like I used to. I used to have a lot of like coffee Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah, I was going to ask what your flavor is. Mine's definitely coffee.
It's only coffee. I don't do any other kind of Haagen-Dazs flavors really much.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Ice cream is something that will screw me up. I will regret that decision for days, having ice cream.
Same with Anthony. A lot of my friends are like that. Dairy does nothing to me that I can tell.
Lucky dog.
I can smash just buckets of dairy and have no. In fact, it's funny. Anthony can eat all the spicy food. If I'm going to eat the spicy food, I got to couple it with piles of dairy so it doesn't crush me. And so, like, when we had the tacos, I was pouring like cream and berries together and just drinking that along with the tacos because it puts that fire out.
Good old sour cream in the mix.
Yeah, I think that pH balance really matters, and at least for me, it does. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, that alkaline dairy doesn't do anything. Nothing. So I can eat lots of dairy, and I do have a lot of different. We have lots of different cheeses in the. So some things I like is cheeses, just all sorts, because you can get so many different unique flavors from cheeses, and you can have hard cheese, soft cheese. It can be really rich, really mild. You can add that to any meal, and it kind of adds a little splash of flavor to a Whole Foods kind of plate. Without the cheese, it's a little boring. Same thing with olives. There's so many different types of olives that you can throw on there. And for some reason, just 2 or 3 different olives along with the rest of it really does kind of carry the meal along for me. So I eat a lot of like olives and cheeses.
Ooh, that was probably like a next level thing that we did on one of our trips this year, is brought just a small rind of old stinky Parmesan, put that in with the meals. Oh God, it's so good. Like you say, it adds another layer of flavor to everything.
So on my trips, my backcountry meals, Suzanne packs for me almost in every meal, including yours. I'll take those Baby Bell cheeses that are white cheddar or normal or whatever. She also packs for me Parmesan that's in freeze dried bags or not freeze dried, but vacuum sealed bags. And then I'll bring like different Tillamook squares of different types. So, after I heat up my meal, I grate cheese, I cut it in slivers, I put it on top, and I put the lid on it. Ryan watches me. And so then there's this coating of cheese on every meal before I eat it. And Ryan's always like, "You got any more of those cheeses over there?" I'm like, "Bring your own. Bring your own." But
you know this about me.
Always share with him. But it's funny.
I think that's a good veteran move, though.
To me, I don't know what it is, but when you put a layer of melted cheese on top of your meal, it adds.
Mm-hmm. Yep, right there
Ryan
with you.
brings agave. What is that?
Tequila?
Yeah. I've never seen Ryan drink, but he brings the what is that spice? Sriracha. He brings sriracha. Yeah. What is it? Blue agave sriracha.
Oh, really?
Isn't it blue agave sriracha? Yeah. I was close. I couldn't remember.
I was like, how do we get from agave to sriracha?
It's funny. I was thinking, what's that other thing that people put on their eggs all the time? Like
Cholula?
No, not sriracha. Tabasco. That's the other thing. So Tabasco and sriracha, two things that I find satanic and want nothing to do with.
This is how he keeps you from eating his food. He's like, "Get out of here. Stay back, you heathen."
But he loves it. So does Lusk. And, that's what I was saying to you a few years back. I'm like, Heather, look, if people want their food to be burning hot, let them add their own spice.
I know.
Make it a little more bland and then let people add to it.
You know what I think has happened now that we're making everything ourselves and Brad runs the kitchen? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty freaking certain that they have been behind my back slowly but surely dialing back the spices on everything. If I'm like, oh, it needs 50 grams of cinnamon in this batch, they're like 25. Pretty certain.
Well, the meals they're perfect right now.
Oh, good.
The peanut stew, that was one that was a little bit, I was a little worried about it first. And the African peanut stew. But
it was the curry that was scaring you, huh?
Well, it was just the spice in general, But I love it. Although the fact that it's vegetarian is sort of irritating.
It's filling, though, isn't it?
It is. I think that it could really use some chicken.
I know. Remind me when it comes hunting season next year, if we don't have little sides of chicken that you can buy on the market, give me a hard time, because we shred hundreds of pounds of chicken and then we dehydrate it and then we have buckets of it. And I'm like, why aren't we selling this stuff?
If you sell that, then you're satisfying the vegetarian along with, the carnivore.
Yep.
So then I can take the African peanut stew, add a little chicken to it, and you have peanut chicken curry. Come on, Heather.
I know.
That's
what
money.
I want. I'm a meat eater.
I do feel like it's lacking a little bit on the meaty side.
Yep.
But I usually make up for that with my own whatever I brought
cheese
with me. Yep. Meat and jerky, lots of jerky. And salmon chowder, I could eat that 365 days a year.
Me too.
Ryan and I have joked about that. You just never, ever get tired of it. It's always good. So Ryan loves the dark chocolate chili.
Oh my gosh. That meal is I think it's my least favorite of our meals right now compared to all the other ones.
Yeah.
And it has become our best seller. I'm like, people are freaking nutso for it.
I like it. It's a little bit, it's just chili.
Mm-hmm.
Chili, any chili spices tend to, like I said.
We've talked about this.
Any chili. Chili. So it's like,
if it rhymes with illy, I'm not into it.
I love it. And you cover it with cheese and it's awesome, but I will pay. And what are the other entrees? What else do you have right now?
We have chicken mole with rice. You would not be into that. There's illies in there. And then Mom's Spaghetti is brand new with gluten-free noodles now, a homemade marinara sauce, grass-fed beef, and that would be perfect with some cheese on top.
Yeah. So it sounds like lasagna a little bit, you know, like.
Oh, it's so good.
I haven't tried that one yet.
Oh, you need to try it. You're going to love it. There's not a single spice to be seen. Woo!
Heck yeah.
Teaser, a teaser. We are going to release a shepherd's pie. And it's
perfect.
So freaking good.
Is it is it a regular potato or sweet potato base?
It's potato flakes like the chowder, so it's going to be creamy like the chowder. Oh my God. I've taken it on a handful of trips now, and it's got green beans and corn, and like the green beans have such a crunch.
That sounds like really, all American right there.
It's really good.
Like it's gonna
do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Pretty excited about that one. And then I've got a handful more recipes that I want to release. Mm-hmm. I think for us right now, like every summer we already max out our dehydrators. And so if I'm like, I have an idea, let's throw 3 more products in the mix, my whole team will just lose it on me. So all in due time, there'll be more products.
Dehydrating takes some serious time. Mm-hmm. Because, I made a lot of my own meals this year. It's probably 60% of the meals I took were my own. And
maybe you'll share one of those recipes with me one of these days.
Ryan and I have some ideas. I loved it. But I found myself on a couple of hunts where I didn't have enough time, to get it going. And then I found meals that just didn't work, It's one of the meals that I did not like it at all, and I made a lot of them, was primal chili. It didn't dehydrate well, and then it was fine. It would rehydrate fairly well, and it tasted a lot like it does when you're at home. Unfortunately, when you're on the mountain and you're working your butt off and you're hiking, a meat and fat meal feels like you don't want it. You want carbs.
You want those sweet potatoes. Get them in there.
So my wife just made a whole ton of sweet potatoes so we could salvage all the primal meals. And then, so I went back and I mixed it, but still it wasn't part of the original meal. Mm-hmm. Just didn't mix as well and turn out as good.
Yeah. It's fun to make your own stuff, but like you say, it's just time consuming because probably every 5 meals probably took a day.
Yeah.
Ish. So yeah, that's where we offer recipe books. I want people to get excited about dehydrating food and try it themselves, and then to appreciate how much work
is involved.
Oh my gosh,
especially
it's crazy.
It's another thing too is you're sourcing really good ingredients. There's something about it's funny. Your meals are really small, like they're like this little tiny package, but they're so filling.
That's the idea.
They're super dense, and you get a competitor product like a Mountain House, and it's this giant bag, and you eat it, and you're gassy, bloated.
Your tent mates hate you.
Yeah. But it's like a whole different thing. Like real food is so different.
It's different. And also, obviously, with dehydrated versus freeze-dried, dehydrated food, it's like eating raisins. The raisins are a lot smaller than the grapes, where if you took freeze-dried grapes, they'd be the same size.
Same size.
And so that's one reason why I'm so stuck on dehydrating instead of freeze drying, because of that saving of space. It's going to kind of screw us in the retail world because you put our product on the shelf next to a Mountain House and you're like, why am I going to pay twice as much for something that's half the size?
Right.
So that's one of my battles in the coming year is to be able to communicate like, what you get in this teeny tiny little package is totally worth it.
Well, shelf life is different too.
Yep. Completely. Like a 25-to-1 difference.
Yeah. Which, that can be, if you want to buy it for food storage, it's not as conducive for that as a freeze-dried meal is. No. A dehydrated meal doesn't quite cut it. But as far as the nutritional value, the health of the meal being as compact and small as it is, I just think when you're talking about backcountry hunting, you back to the 3,000 calories or 2,500 calories a day. when I was eating junk calories, I was 3,500 or 4,000 a day, and I would have problems. Now today, I eat 2,500 to 3,000, and I do great. So it's that, again, it goes back to the quality of the food you're eating.
I mean, that's true for everybody, walking by us on the street. If they're eating junk, you can eat a lot of junk, and it's pretty fun. But you don't feel that great versus if you eat high quality stuff, you just don't need as many calories, and then that impacts your weight and your energy and all that.
So on the packaroon side of the house, which is like almost like a perfect bar in terms of its, perfection, so your packaroons are a smash hit. Like you don't really need any help, like getting people to buy off on those because they're pretty awesome. What's in them? For people that are listening, like, and why did you go with that formula?
So what's in them? They are mostly coconut. So we buy now thousands of pounds of shredded coconut at a time. It's just so fun. Comes in pallets. And then we make our own coconut butter. Another like painstaking step that's totally worth it. Because as you know, coconut butter is like heaven in a jar.
It's like spoonfuls of it. That's what Metabolic Mike brought on that hunt.
Oh my gosh.
Like bars of soap size of coconut butter.
Oh, that stuff is so good. So we make our own coconut butter. So that goes in there. Shredded coconut butter, almond flour goes into the blonde flavors. And that makes them like nice and lofty and just so good. And then all the packaroon flavors, all 8 of them, get a ton of maple syrup, which we go to Costco 3 times a week. And we buy, the push cart at Costco, like just stacked with 1 liter jugs of maple syrup. And if someone asks me one more time if I'm making pancakes, I'm going to lose it. It never gets old. Somebody is going to like make a breakfast joke as we're like shoving this cart through the snow out to the truck. It's like, God, when are we going to buy like 55-gallon drums of maple syrup? Yeah. So it's maple syrup. The reason I like maple syrup is because the flavor is so good, and then it's more mineral rich, in my opinion, than some of the other sweeteners out there, and it's all organic. And then we put vanilla extract or almond extract, depending on the flavor, and some really good sea salt, and some dried fruit, and maybe a little bit of spice.
Why is the espresso one not as soft as like the orange?
Because we put almond flour in the orange one. The espresso gets cocoa powder. And so the consistency of almond flour versus cocoa powder, 2 totally different animals. Cocoa powder, if you put too much in the packaroons, it will completely seize up the packaroon machine. It'll just be like an all stop, like you just created concrete. That's the big difference. They get dehydrated for the same amount of time, but man, like I think what we could try is putting some almond flour in with the black espresso ones to see if we can make them a little more lofty. But yeah, that is a serious point of contention, is the texture difference between almond flour and cocoa powder.
Yeah, like I love the orange. What is it, mandarin or the
orange vanilla?
Orange vanilla. And I love the vanilla. Like they're just awesome. I like the texture. I like all that. Lampers loves the espresso. Most people I know love the espresso. I like it too. But he takes the espresso and he puts Justin's like peanut butter honey on it.
Yeah,
like
that sounds
dollops,
good.
bite, dollop. And so that's good. I put that on the chocolate bar, perfect bars too, that I get from Costco, because they're just not peanut butter.
Right.
So you add some Justin's honey peanut butter to it, and then I like that one too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I wish we could make our own nut butters someday. Someday that'll happen, but our own fruit leathers and all that stuff. But for now, we've got our hands full.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you're coming out with this next year. I'm excited for the shepherd's pie. What are you going to call it?
Well, so here's one of the things. Now that we're under USDA inspection, we have USDA inspectors that show up all the time and they approve all of our labels. And so with the USDA, you can't like come up with anything cute and funny. Like Mom's Paschetti didn't fly.
They're
Paschetti was not a word. I was like, gah,
yeah,
no. It had to be Mom's spaghetti with beef and marinara sauce.
yeah.
And at one point they wanted it to be Mom's spaghetti with meat sauce. And I was like, no, we're not putting meat sauce on the bag.
What a pain in the butt.
So there's restrictions like that we deal with. So realistically, it's going to be shepherd's pie with beef because I can't make any grass-fed claims. I can't make any gluten-free claims. Like those sorts of hurdle things aren't very fun. So it takes away a little bit of that creativity, but it'll be shepherd's pie. And it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a new favorite for people. So I'm going to go home to Alaska and get that scheduled into production and hopefully launch it March, April timeframe.
Do you think you'll ever go back to producing like dried salmon again?
What do you mean? Like the salmon bits?
The salmon bits?
I would like to. So we dehydrate all of our own salmon for the salmon chowder, obviously. And I would love to do like salmon bites, jerky bites, all that stuff. Right now, the limitation we have is just our 2 dehydrators. And those suckers right now run 5 days a week. And so any new products that take up dehydrator time, I just have to kind of weigh that out. So assuming that Heather's Choice grows as big and awesome as I want it to be, yeah, we will have jerky, we will have fruit leathers, we will have hot drinks, we will have everything. I have yet to get the production capacity to do all that stuff. But, it's only been 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
We're just getting started, right?
Well, I mean, what do you think about, mixing, a freeze dry in with the dehydrated, like in terms of some of your offerings are freeze dried, some are dehydrated?
I think it'd be fine. I think that the reason we've strayed from freeze dried, one of the many reasons, is simply because it would be difficult to source something like a wild caught freeze dried salmon. It's not necessarily available. So what are our options? Make it ourselves. I definitely think something like peas. Dehydrated peas will never rehydrate. They won't do it.
Right.
So like freeze dried peas, yeah, let's like get them in the mix. So for me, it's not like a moral obligation of like, we will not freeze dry food. No, it has nothing to do with that. It's all about it packs down smaller. We can control the quality.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a total possibility. Like if we ever wanted to do our own our own instant coffee, it would be spray dried or freeze dried.
Yeah.
You're not going to dehydrate coffee. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's been a lot of, like for me, back to the restaurant thing you mentioned earlier, being on the road, these backcountry meals that I put together, kind of these things that I take with me all the time. And because I travel so much, I've found that making these meals for myself for day-to-day consumption, not just when I'm backcountry, has been big. And I noticed Ryan does that. He'll drive around and his truck will have just meals and foods in it,
it's that like are a treasure chest
of all this good stuff that you don't get tired of eating, hemp heart cookies, whatever. It's like, it's there. And so I found like that was my goal this year. So when I did travel to do a show or podcast or go on a hunt, I didn't just bring the food for the backcountry. I brought the food for every day when I'm not in the backcountry, different, food options. And I feel like that is a great way to, because a lot of people will complain, I don't have time to cook. I don't have time for that. Well, if you do a little preparation, you can make some pretty darn good meals that are on the go, ready to go. So jerky is huge, and
dried apples,
dried bananas, like all that kind of stuff you can have at the ready all the time. And And those foods are good. And you can have those at any time.
Yeah.
Up your health game.
That's where, like I said, the salmon chowder, that if I didn't pack a lunch, I will eat that meal for lunch happily. And I think that brings up, what you asked about earlier of like, would we ever do an oatmeal? I think if we were going to do an oatmeal, I'd want it to be nutritionally balanced enough that you or I would eat it like on a day-to-day. Like I'm traveling. I don't want to intermittent fast. I want to have this because it gives me the protein, carbs, and fats that I need. Yep. It's not just carbohydrates.
I love the oats. Ryan's been sweetening his with monk fruit.
Ooh, I haven't had monk fruit.
You should try it. It weirds me out a little bit though. It's not sugar.
And it's the fiber from inside the fruit. Just tastes sweet. So it's just sweetened fiber.
Sweetened fiber. It's delish.
It's weird. It's sweeter than sugar, it seems to me. And it's like a powdered, like confectioner sugar, like powdered sugar, kind of. And it's good. It's super sweet, though. And so you add it to stuff, and I'm like, it's a little hyper sweet. But it's not, it supposedly doesn't trigger the insulin response like sugar does.
Sure.
But it's an interesting thing.
Yep.
But Ryan's been putting that in a lot of stuff, this past year, including his oatmeal. And
I know, I hope he'll share that recipe with us. That would be super fun to make.
I prefer it not being that sweet myself. And I feel like most oatmeal options out there and the meals that are provided are just way too sweet.
Would you ever eat a savory oatmeal?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah. Like a bacon oatmeal? Yeah, I'd eat that.
Oh, you know what I bought the other day was instant grits. Mm-hmm. Interested to see what we can do with instant grits.
Yeah.
Like a bacon and grits of some sort would be pretty interesting. So yeah, there's some of that recipe testing. I'll just send stuff with you and Ryan, and you guys can put it to the test.
Ryan's tried a lot of different things, by the way. So he's got lots of ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you guys have got a pretty good system down, though. We'll have to get you to write down your menu for people so they know what to take. Because I feel like, again, we take it for granted. Like, oh, I'm going on a trip. I'm going to take this, 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 and this. And there's still so many people who are like, whoa, just the food packing is so overwhelming. I wish that, again, like next business, being able to do all of that packing for somebody and being like, oh, you're going on a 10-day trip? Here's your 10-gallon size Ziplocs of good quality food and hot drinks and everything you could ever want. Go. Because for me, I love that stuff. I love packing, love like the preparation, and love planning the food. And I know for plenty of people, that is not their favorite part of a trip.
No. I kind of hate that stuff. But now
it's so fun.
It's so like second nature. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, but you probably wait till the last minute and then
it depends on how important the hunt is, how big a deal it is. But nowadays Suzanne's so awesome. I'm going on this hunt. It's 14 days and I need this, and I put in my order. And then I give her 2 or 3 weeks notice, and all the meals and all the food's done by the time I need to go. So
must be nice.
I don't actually do any of it. Suzanne did it all. And then my buddies, Anthony, Ben, Schaefer, they all like put in orders and paid her to make their meals for her.
Oh my gosh. I need to pick her brain, see what she's got up her sleeve.
She's like, all right. So she made a bunch of stuff. So it helps. It helps to kind of, because it's expensive to buy all this backcountry food. But the thing is I want more variety than just what I make myself too. So mixing and matching, my stuff with your stuff was a really good blend. And when you're gone like 30 days in a 2-month window, that's a lot of meals to buy. So if you make your own, you can kind of mix it up. So
with that said, with the first like print Heather's Choice ad we ever make, is going to be a guy sitting behind like a spotting scope with his backpack and his bow and his binos around, and like everything's going to have a price tag. They're like $3,000 spotting scope, like $850 backpack. How much does a bow cost?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and then there's going to be this little like
$1,500.
$15 price tag on the Heather's Choice meal. I'm going to be like, what's the cheapest thing in your whole getup? It's your food. I guarantee it.
For sure. Well, and you have to look at it too in terms of what you're eating when you're at home anyway. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I'll do the math there. I'll be like, well, I was going to eat probably this much anyway, because you got to eat whether you're on the mountain or whether you're here.
Totally.
But people have a hard time, Heather, spending money on food when they could go buy new arrows.
Which, that's why someone like you is so important, because you're going to be like, if you eat like shit, you're not going to be able to shoot for shit.
That's right. Well, I would say there's two things that make people come off the mountain. We've talked about this 100 times. It's the food. People quit on day 2 or 3 because they hate the food they brought with them. Aww. And they're like, I still have a week left. I can't do this. I can't eat this power bar. I can't do it. You know, like this Cliff Bar's not going to get me through. I got 20 more of these to go. I can't do it. And they're thinking of hamburgers and fries, milkshakes. And so they quit because of food, and they quit because of cold. Often they quit because of cold, because their shelter's inadequate. Maybe they don't have a stove, or their gear is inadequate, like their clothing and their jackets. So food and they're two huge things, but I'd say most people quit because they hate the food they brought.
Oh, you're going to love this story. I'll make it short. So we had a couple guys come up. They had a Kenai caribou tag and invited us to come on this trip with them. Mm-hmm. Coming up from, I think it was Wisconsin. And the one guy's on a Whole30 diet. Okay. And he's probably 57 or something. Yeah. He's lost a bunch of weight, so he's like really committed to this Whole30 thing. And he asked me, like, Heather, what do I pack for this trip? And I'm like, oh, like, here's like a list of Whole30 friendly foods you can bring. Dude, man shows up with like 5 RX bars for every day of this like 7-day mountain caribou hunt. And like, you've eaten an RX bar in like normal temperatures. Yeah. It's like snowing, cold, and like trying to bite into your 5th blueberry RX bar for the day. Like, he was about to lose it. Yeah. And so Brad and I had to come out early. And of course, like, I always overpack food. I just bring everything. And so I left him with probably like a 2-pound bag of Heather's Choice food. And he's like, if I never see an RX bar again for the rest of my life, and he just couldn't take it.
That's what I mean. Like, they're guys that do that have no idea. They're not as mentally tough as they think they are.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. I felt so bad for this guy.
The drive, the urge to quit, it's way stronger than people realize. There's so many good options too.
Yeah, but if you bring like one thing, mm-hmm. Yep.
I did that where I brought. I've done all this. I don't do it anymore. I remember bringing those green bellies.
Oh yeah.
I brought a bunch of those because I was like in a hurry. I wasn't going to bring a cook stove, and I was just bringing those along. And it was rough. It was rough. Yep. One thing I like to bring on hunts nowadays that I always bring like sardines and cheese and some like Milton's gluten-free crackers. Ooh. And I'll bring that every third day or so. I'll be able to just smash a big oily can of sardines, and it's amazing.
Yep. Brad and I bring salami, cheese.
That's another one.
And like Mary's Gone crackers. Mm-hmm. Those are really good. They're gluten-free. And then some like salty mixed nuts. And it's like a little fancy charcuterie board on a bandana. It's so good. We don't travel light though. We're usually not that concerned. It's like, but we're going to eat all this.
I do think that, all of those things, those little tricks, having that variety just makes it so much more fun too.
Yeah, you want to stay longer. You're not in a hurry to get out of there.
Yep. So right now, what happens this time of year? Because a lot of hunting is done. There's still adventures. How do your sales work this time of year? Because we had Black Friday the other day. Yep. But people are buying the food for hunting season in my world. But I mean, so how does that work with you?
Oh, it's so painful. It's
very seasonal.
Very seasonal, like unbelievably so. So for us, we tend to see that come even as early as April, like January, February, March, we're doing trade shows, but it's like pretty quiet. So then really in April, we start to see our web stuff pick up. And then it just continues to go beep, 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 beep all the way through August. And then September comes and it's like, boom, back down. And so it's like this really aggressive ramp all the way through August. And then I think September dies off because most people bought in August and then they're in the field in September. And then October, November, December, it's just pretty freaking quiet. I have yet to like crack the code on holiday sales. I also think that there's that bit of authenticity of like, I know you don't need this stuff right now. You know you don't need this stuff right now. Don't let me try to like push this stuff on you.
Yeah.
And so I would prefer for us to get to the point where we can just bank on like, okay, like these are the 6 months of the year that we make all of our money and the rest of the year can be more like maintenance. But we're also exploring other sports like mountaineering, rock climbing, fat biking, stuff like that, so that we have more winter activities that people could be using our products.
Right.
But honestly, I think so long as we continue to focus on the hunting market and continue to try to serve them, the seasonality is just going to be painful. But we're even working with REI and Sportsman's Warehouse now, and even those big retailers, they're like, we buy less camping food in the winter months because people aren't coming in and buying as much.
Yeah, no, I mean, that one thing I think is happening though, hunting is becoming more year round for a lot of people.
Gosh, it seems like it.
So like for us, spring bear is now, bear hunting has become wildly popular in the last few years. And I think it's going to continue to grow. And especially as people start to consume the bear meat because they know more about it, it's much more compelling to go bear hunting because it is now my favorite game meat. So, and then being able to hunt in New Zealand,
yep,
it was a really inexpensive hunt for what you get. And there's all these places around the world where you can go and do something like that. Then there's these pig hunts and there's just all these options in different parts.
Aren't there like deer? Isn't deer hunting like through December in Arizona or something crazy like
January, February. Yeah. So there is an expansion of these kind of backcountry adventures in the hunting space. And I think people are broadening their activities, not just I go mule deer and elk hunting in the fall. It's like, oh no, I go to a spring turkey hunt and I do this and I do that. And as that grows, there's a potential for your business to thrive in other times of the year, especially in the spring, where it seems like, you know,
just more use cases.
Some of that backcountry stuff is becoming more prevalent. A lot of guys are just expanding their hunting season.
Yeah.
You know? So be interesting to see how it morphs over the next 5 years and so on. So
yeah, I'm interested too, because I would, you know, again, the seasonality is hard from like a cash flow and a production standpoint and just a planning standpoint. It'd be nice if we were more level. And it also kind of fits with our Alaskan lifestyle for us to be go, go, go all summer long. And then to have winter months where it's like,
yeah,
let's just shut her down, or like, let's do something else. You know, I'm grateful that our whole company is going to take 2 weeks off at the end of the year. Kitchen's closed. We're not shipping orders. We're not doing anything. And I think that not ignoring that that's a luxury we have as a young business rather than having to work 24 hours, 7 days a week. Yeah. So it's going to evolve, but that's why it's been so great to be involved in this community and get to like have mentors here, because I can talk to them and say like, hey, how do I handle the seasonality? And also, do I continue to focus on this market that I know and that I love and that I appreciate and that appreciates us, even though it's seasonal? Or do I try to be everything to everybody? And that's been a really hard decision to defend, because as soon as you step outside of the hunting community, I don't think people realize how dedicated, loyal, and lifelong this customer base is. Like, you're going to do this stuff for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Where you could have a stint in rock climbing, mountain biking, and then be like, I'm going to go do something else. And I feel like that is, for me as a business owner, when I look at this market, and even though it's seasonal and it's painful at times, I'm like, gosh, but these people are going to stick with us for the rest of their life. And they are like teaching their kids how to hunt, and they're raising new hunters. They're like raising us new customers.
Right.
Ideally.
Yeah.
And so that to me feels like a better long-term strategy, just to really stay focused here and to know that, our customer base is broad and lots of different people are going to use our stuff. Hopefully you do find use cases of like taking it on an airplane or taking it for international travel or whatever the deal is. But I'm hopeful that we can just continue to stay focused and serve the people who have really, I would say, have taken care of us since the first podcast I did with you 4 years ago.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah, I deal with the seasonality of hunting as well.
Really?
I mean, that's why, it's funny. A lot of my lowest downloads are during the hunting season.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
those punks.
It's like everyone's gone hunting, and so they're like, we're done with podcasts for now. And then they'll come back January, February, Yeah, it's a little bit seasonal for us, but but I think as more and more hunters hunt year round, it's changed. People want to know. There's a whole group of people that tune in for bear season, turkey, or even our New Zealand trip, any kind of adventure. And then we're always talking about fitness, backcountry meals, preparing gear, all that stuff year round. So I think you have the guys that tune in because they think about it every day of the year.
Yep.
And they're always there. And then you have the guys that, tune in about a month or two before their hunt because they want to get excited about hunting and brush up on maybe elk calling or something just before. So it kind of, it's definitely seasonal though.
Yeah.
So right now, people can get 10% off at Heather's Choice. 15. I knew that.
A whopping 15.
Okay, so people can get 15% off if they use the code GRITTY at Heather's Choice. And right now, the kitchen is not closed. So you can stock up on your packaroons.
Just get some packaroons or get like a set of meals and go try them out. Go take your family camping. Try them in your kitchen. I don't care. But the packaroons, people eat those all the time.
Well, they're like perfect bars. And like they're that thing you can just have with you all the time, year round. 15% is a pretty good savings.
We love your customers. Again, it's so staggering when I talked to my team about it, and I was like, I'm gonna go get to hang out with Brian Call and Gritty, and it's like, gosh, at least half the people who come up and introduce themselves to us at trade shows are like, I first heard about you on the Gritty Bowman podcast. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's wild how much of an impact that had for us in our business.
That's cool. And we met at the BHA annual rendezvous. And
that's when I first got to hear Brent's bear story.
Little tricky gnosis for Brent. Yep. It was good times.
Gosh.
So yeah, the audience, has been awesome. They're into this backcountry stuff. I can't recommend your meals enough. They're awesome. So check it out. 15% off. Code GRITTY. And it's heatherschoice.com.
Yep, we're easy to find. And I run our Instagram, so if people have questions, they can send them directly to me. I'm really easy to get a hold of. So.
All right. Folks, thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Got questions, send them to Heather, send them to me. And as always, stay gritty.